What if the last lesson Willie Nelson leaves us isn't a chorus, but a blueprint? What if the quietest man on the stage has been showing us the hardest truth the whole time? That life will take and take, but if you keep turning hurt into work, 92 years old, a guitar with a hole where his hand has lived for decades, a voice that never chases pretty, only honest. He steps into the light like it's a front porch, nods once, and the room does something you can't teach. It listens. Some legends fade because fame runs out. Willie didn't. He trimmed away everything that wasn't real and kept walking. He isn't the last man standing because nothing broke him. He's the last man standing because breaking never kept him down. Listen close. He's the final member of a brotherhood people thought would live forever. Johnny is gone. Waylon is gone. Kris is gone. The circle closed, except it didn't. One stubborn thread won't let the story end. The kid from Abbott, Texas, raised by grandparents in hard weather, is still here, still telling truths you can hum. But if you think this is just music, you're missing the marrow. This is the story of a child who learned early that love can leave. A young man who slept in his car and in ditches when rides didn't come. A husband who made mistakes he couldn't take back. A father who knows how cold December feels when the phone rings with the worst news a parent can hear. It's about the thin line between bending and breaking, and how mercy lives on the bending side. His first lesson was absence. His mother drifted out. His father remarried, and was more gone than present. Absence doesn't explode. It echoes. His grandparents did the holy work of showing up. A meal when there was meat. A hymn when there was only heat and hunger. A roof that held in storms. His grandfather's hands were iron from the forge. But his gift was simple. A guitar in a small boy's lap, and a quiet nudge to try. The strings bit. He kept pressing. Picture it. A boy in a church pew, heels kicked out because they don't reach the floor yet, testing a harmony like it could keep the room from swallowing him. Weekdays in cotton fields under a sun that doesn't forgive. Weeknights carrying a cheap case to little dance halls where pay is a few dollars and a hot plate if you're lucky. He discovered something most people never do. Silence is only permanent if you don't answer it. He answered. Early gigs on makeshift stages where the crowd was two-stepping before the second verse. Radio shifts in tiny booths that smelled like coffee and dust, where the red light meant you were no longer invisible. He learned to carry a room with timing, not volume, to leave space in a phrase so the heart could catch up. But there's a brutal difference between making noise and being heard. Nashville taught him that in careful rejections and forced smiles. He hustled overnight radio, spun other people's hits, and wrote like rent was due at dawn. One song born from a kitchen table and a family memory got sold for grocery money and became someone else's hit. A pattern set, the world fell in love with Willie's words, delivered by other voices. Crazy. Funny. How time slips away. Pretty paper. The jukebox saints carried those melodies everywhere. People slow danced, stared out windows, forgave each other, or didn't, while the man who wrote their night soundtrack watched from the edges. Producers listened to him sing and said the voice was too gravel, the look too plain, the style too sideways. They wanted shine. He offered truth. They passed. So he did something that sounds simple and costs a lot. He stopped asking to be let in. He went home to Texas. The rooms were smaller, and the rules were fewer. Austin didn't flinch at a scar. It didn't ask him to glitter. It asked him to mean it. He answered with songs that spoke low and true, records that didn't beg radio for approval. Songs that gave listeners a job. Lean closer. Shotgun Willie snapped like a rope pulling tight. Phases and stages told both sides of a heartbreak, without making either side the villain. And then a whisper of a record rewired country music. Red-headed stranger. Wasn't big. It was bare. Space, story. A voice that refused to rush. The label worried. Until people listened and said leave it alone. You could hear the dust, the distance, the mercy. Then the so-called outlaws quit knocking on the main gate. Willie, Waylon, Jesse, Tomple, artists who refused to trade bones for glitter. The idea was shocking only because the town had forgotten it. You don't need polish to tell the truth. They didn't storm anything. They ignored rules that never loved them. The rules fell over on their own. From the stage it looked like redemption. Backstage, real life did what it always does. It tangled. One afternoon, a letter landed on the wrong kitchen table. A hospital bill. A new baby. A name that wasn't supposed to be there. You can't sing your way around that sentence. He didn't. The marriage cracked where trust goes to die. He faced the wreckage the way he faced everything else, without a PR script and without excuses. Sorry doesn't fix it, but it's where fixing starts. He went back to work. Not because a crowd heals a heart, but because work keeps your hands moving while your heart tries. Then came the number. 16.7 million. It didn't arrive as a shock from nowhere. It arrived like a slow river that no one dammed in time. Bad advice. Blind trust. The kind of neglect that blooms when you spend decades living out of a suitcase and you're better at chords than columns. One day there were trucks in the driveway, and men who didn't care about music loaded the proof of it into boxes. He hid the one thing the world couldn't take. The guitar that knew his secrets, because if you lose your voice, you lose the way back. He did the only thing he knows when the sky is falling. He sang. He made a record that was less album and more confession. He offered the past to buy back the future. Late night TV. A phone number. A country that remembered it had danced and cried to his words for years, deciding that loyalty goes both ways. The debt fell, slow at first, then like trees after a storm. He didn't fold. He didn't run. He paid what he owed and walked out with dignity, guitar in hand. But grief has no receipts. One December morning, the call that changes how a calendar feels forever. His firstborn was gone. We keep the language careful here, because families deserve closed doors. He stepped off the stage for a while. When he stepped back, you could hear it in the way he let air live between lines. A pause where a presence used to be. The songs didn't get sadder, they got tender, in a new way. Like a hand being careful with a cracked cup. It still loves. Time kept doing what time does. Paul English, the drummer who could end a fight with a look and guard the band like a brother, left. Bobby, the sister who stood next to him at the first piano and the last, left. Then Kris, the pilot poet who wrote like a scholar and sang like a ranch hand, left too. The highway got quiet. The circle didn't close. It thinned until there was one voice left carrying all the harmony parts.
How do you keep playing when your body doesn't love the miles and your friends have gone ahead? You change how you move?
He listened to the lungs. A collapse years ago had warned him. Emphysema made every breath a choice. He put down the smoke and kept the spirit. Edibles instead of fire. A medical try to coax damaged tissue toward mercy. He canceled shows when he had to. He came back when the breath did. Pride yells. Wisdom nods. He nodded. Watch a late-era show and you don't see a man trying to beat time. You see a truce. The band leans toward him. He leans toward the song. He isn't reaching for high notes. He's reaching for right ones. The phrasing feels like a friend telling you something important on a porch at dusk. You don't cough over a friend like that. You hush and hold the moment. And the work didn't turn into a scrapbook. He kept writing, kept choosing songs that fit like a well-worn jacket, records about borders and reckonings, small mercies and long roads. He didn't chase trend. He chased truth. Newer artists called him in like a compass. Crowds with gray hair stood next to crowds who weren't born when Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain climbed. That's the magic trick. Make something so human it outlives the season that delivered it. Home base is a place that sounds like a joke until you step through its gate and feel it settle on your shoulders. Luck. Texas. A town built for a film, kept alive for a family that doesn't all share blood. Sun-warped boards. A chapel that remembers a camera and now remembers tears. A stage where the set list reads like a diary. Once a year, the gates open wider and the misfits, lifers, pickers, shouters, and quiet believers show up. Call it a festival if you need a word. It plays more like a reunion for people who were never sure where they belonged until the music told them. His actual family isn't watching from a porch swing. They're inside the songs. Sons on guitars, a daughter with a harmony that catches him when the air gets thin. The most generous thing an artist can do is make room. Willie's whole late life show is a lesson in room making. He doesn't ask them to imitate him. He asks them to be themselves next to him. You can see what endurance cost and what it gave back. A house full of music, a legacy that breathes, day to day. He lives small on purpose. Morning light across a table that's seen better days. Food that tastes like it grew in real dirt. Walks that aren't about numbers, so much as paying attention. Trees he's known for years. The same bend in the path, different birds. He prays without announcing it. Some days the prayer is a song. Some days it's silence. He refuses to fear. He is not trying to be young. He's trying to be here. People love to ask about money. Like a man is a balance sheet. He lost almost everything once. He built it back the old way, one tour at a time, one idea at a time, one stubborn refusal to be finished at a time. That's not glamorous. It's better. It's real. He never joined the chorus that complains about how everything changed. He found bridges. He stood next to artists who didn't grow up with him, and didn't need to, and he made the room make sense for everyone. Because the truth doesn't care what year it is. It just sits there being itself until someone brave enough picks it up and plays. Here's the secret of why the rooms stay full. His songs don't judge you. They sit beside you like a good dog. Warm and quiet, making the room feel safe. They smell like cedar and coffee and rain. They don't fix your life, but they make the next hour possible. You don't get that from perfect notes. You get it from honest ones. Now more stories that explain the man without pinning him down. He once scribbled a verse on a scrap while the plane wheels were still leaving the runway, because someone needed a song about motion. And he decided to tell the truth. That's his whole method in miniature. Write what is, not what sells. He carried a nylon string guitar long enough and hard enough that the wood caved where his hand lives. He never patched the hole because it isn't broken. It's a diary in cedar. He named that guitar like family and protected it when men with clipboards tried to number his life. Some things belong to soul, not ledgers. He built a little town for a movie and refused to let it die when the cameras stopped. Now it's where weary people remember they're not alone. That's what he does. He turns sets into homes, work into refuge, pain into tasks. He helped start a cause for family farmers, not because it was fashionable, but because it was needed. Year after year, the cause kept calling, and he kept answering, not with speeches, with time, money, and songs. Real help beats slogans. He quit fire when fire started stealing his breath. He changed how he moved so he could keep moving. That isn't defeat, that's strategy. He forgave people who didn't earn it, and watched some of them become better after. He lost people he couldn't live without, and lived anyway. He sang at funerals and weddings and bare stages in between. He never confused applause with love, but he accepted both, with the same small nod that means thank you. He knows how to end a night. Not with fireworks, but with a song that leaves the room gentler than he found it. Zoom in closer on the road. The rhythm that kept him alive. Mornings on a bus when the countryside still looks half asleep. Coffee in a chipped mug, not because he can't afford nicer, but because it feels like a friend. Set lists penciled, then crossed out. The best shows always leave room for detours. A quick sound check, not to impress the techs, but to make sure the room's heartbeat lines up with his. A pre-show laugh that says, "We're lucky to be here." Then the slow walk to the stage, the band falling in behind him like geese in a sky that knows the way. First strum. The sound of cedar waking up, A breath that lands where it needs to. A room that leans forward together the way people do when they're about to hear something true. He doesn't shout the truth. He lays it down and lets you pick it up. Between songs, he tells the smallest stories. A highway seen 1,000 times. A diner that never changes its coffee. A face he remembers from a crowd 5 towns ago. It's not banter. It's stitching. Little threads that tie strangers to a night they'll remember when the year gets mean. Backstage after, he moves slower. Smiles easy. Takes a photo with a hand on a shoulder the way a father does when he wants you to feel steady. He doesn't linger to bask. He says goodnight like a man closing a book. Another town tomorrow. Another room to make kinder than he found it. Home again and the pace changes. No spotlight. No applause. That's by design. He always knew that if the show is the only place you feel alive, you'll never want to go home, and you'll lose both. So he built a life that doesn't need cheering. A dog, a gate, a sunrise that never asks for tickets. A table with mail and pics on it. A chair where he can mend and think. The quiet is no longer the enemy. It's the pride. Philosophy without the grand words. Count the good. Say the sorry. Keep the promise. Play the song. Don't let money tell you who you are. Don't let pain make you cruel. Remember where you came from. Share the stage. Listen more than you talk. If you have breath, you have a job. The job is to turn it into something useful. Love, unvarnished. He loved hard and not always well. He got things wrong. He owned it. He learned that loving is not the same as keeping, and keeping is not the same as honoring. He tried to honor, even when keeping was impossible. That is its own kind of courage. Faith, quiet. He doesn't sell you a sermon. He lives one. A long obedience in the same direction. Show up. Be kind. Play true. Keep going. If that sounds plain, listen longer. Plain is what holds when the glitter falls off. Legacy, the part people argue about. Awards are easy to count. Influence isn't. You measure his by the way young writers sing softer and land harder. By the way crowds let silence live between notes. By the way a country artist can confess now without putting the word pop in the pitch deck. By the way old folks and teenagers hum the same chorus for different reasons, and nobody feels out of place. Pain management, the real kind. He lost breath and found another path to the same peace. He lost friends and kept their parts alive inside his phrasing. He lost money and learned the difference between being broke and being broken. He lost time and decided to stop wasting the time he had left on pretending. The present tense where the story still breathes. He wakes up and checks if the hands still know where the notes live. They do. He makes coffee and thanks the morning for showing up. He reads a few lines, writes a few more. He calls a kid, a friend, a bandmate's widow. He touches cedar like a memory and it answers back. He picks a melody that isn't finished and smiles. The unfinished songs are the proof that life is still happening. Why this matters to you? Because you have your own numbers, your own letters, your own losses that don't have receipts. You have your own rooms where you're not sure you belong, your own voices telling you the look is wrong, the style is sideways, the truth too rough. And here is a man who took every one of those verdicts and outlived them by choosing the next right thing. Not the spectacular thing, the next right one. Because you've stood in kitchens where the bill said more than the person in the doorway could. Because you've gotten a call that rewrote a holiday. Because you've wondered how to breathe when breathing felt like lifting a car. Because you've been told to glitter when all you had was grit. This isn't a fan club. It's field notes for staying human. So what do we do with all this? We don't make him a statue. Statues don't breathe. We let him be what he is. A living example of how to hold on without hardening. A man who kept choosing the song. A man who proved that survival isn't hiding from sorrow. It's teaching sorrow to keep time. If you ever sat in a parked car and let one of his choruses be the bridge between who you were at 5 p.m. and who you had to be by 6, you already get it. He doesn't sing at you. He sings with you. He hands you a piece of the weight and somehow it feels lighter when you carry it together. He won't write a grand goodbye. He'll write one more verse, then another, then a small one that sounds plain, until you wake up the next day and realize it followed you into the kitchen and made your coffee taste like grace. That's his trick. He takes the edges off sharp mornings. And if this story has given you anything, courage, company, a breath you didn't think you had, say so. Drop a thank you for the man who kept showing up. Not because the internet needs more comments, because gratitude is how we pay our own debts. One last line for the road. Some hearts don't heal by closing. They heal by staying open long enough to let the music in. Willie Nelson is proof. The last brother on the highway, still driving, still waving you over, still making room, still choosing the song.